What's going on? Welcome to mikeybalzz Fishing. Hey, Bog. Hey, Bog. Do you like him more than me? I think he likes ginger guys more than me. Oh, yeah. I got my buddy JT with me, dude. So here's what we're gonna do. JT is a master of swamp fishing, and he's taught me a lot, dude. Whether it's ledge fishing, whether it's deep water fishing, whether it's shallow water fishing. And not only that, he's kind of a fun guy. He's got a lot of tips, but the dog kind of likes him more. Don't know, maybe he likes bigger dudes or something. But here's what we're gonna do. We're going into frog season in Alabama. It's always frog season in Florida. He catches, dude, what do you have, 2 11-pounders?
One on a frog. On a frog.
Okay, so you caught an 11 on a frog. So like giants, dude. And although I can fish a frog, it's not one of my fortes. JT's pretty good at it. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go through some frogging tips. It's the perfect time of year to be talking about it. Plus, we're on rain delay, dude. So rain delay means talking tackle, talking frogs, and talking tips with the Ginger King himself. Stay tuned. So I got my boy JT. What's up, JT?
Good to see you guys. We got lots and lots of frog stuff going on. And I'm gonna tell you something, and you're gonna think, oh, it's just a commercial. This is stupid. He's just trying to sell you something. I'm not trying to sell you something. I don't care if you buy this or not. But I'm going to tell you one of the things that has made me, I feel like, a better frog fisherman lately is that new Scumfrog launch frog that they can. And look, I got a snag-proof shirt on, but these are Scumfrogs. Dude, let me tell you exactly what's going on with this thing. So everybody knows the old Scumfrogs. They're super soft and they're really easy to hook fish, right? But you couldn't cast it. You couldn't even throw the thing, right? So what Scumfrog did is they kept that super soft, supple body, but they put a tungsten weight system in it. And if you pull this thing apart, you can see on the shaft there, see how that shaft looks that big? Because there's a tungsten weight system on there. Dude, this thing weighs 3/4 of an ounce. You can fire it. If you're throwing 65 or 80 pound braid with a good reel, you can cast all the braid off your reel. It's absolutely amazing. It's got a big gap of a hook in it. But one of the most interesting things this has done, yes, you can cast it further. You can cast it more accurately because you can skip it easier, and it just casts easier. But with that weight transfer system, one of the things it's done, you know, we always talk about walking the dog where you go jump, 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 back and forth. But with that weight system in the bottom of it, it gives it a stutter step. Like when it goes sideways, it does a bounce. And then when it comes over here, and it does a bounce. It doesn't just go to that side and that side. And it has just opened up so much for me. And then the other thing is, it's got a big hole in the back of it. So you're not all the time squeezing it, trying to get the water out of it so it'll float. It's 3/4 of an ounce and it floats just fine. Why it floats just fine? It's magic. Absolute magic. Because I don't know how they do it, because I don't think any other frog that weighed 3/4 of an ounce would actually float. But this frog literally is the only frog I will use. It's been out for 4 or 5 months at the time we're taping this video. It's been out 4 or 5 months. I've had one for about a year. I was trying to help them design it. Most of the design was not my stuff. They just kept sending it to me, and I was like, wow, that's awesome. And then they'd send me another version. I'd be like, that's even better. But this thing is just amazing. The rod that I throw it on most of the time, now you gotta remember, I'm a pretty tall guy, so I like, all my rods are typically longer than everybody else. But, so I do a 7.6. This is a Halo Black Widow, 7.6 heavy action. And the thing is, before, when you would throw a 7.6 heavy action, whatever rod brand you pick, whatever, when you would throw a 7.6 heavy action with the old frogs that weighed a ½ ounce and were just, they weighed a ½ ounce and they're that big and the wind catches them and it just doesn't work very well. But you were throwing it over slop, so you wanted a heavy action rod to be able to, get those fish up out of that stuff. But with a heavy action rod, it's hard to find one with a really good tip. And not that this one has a great soft tip either. It doesn't. It's a heavy action rod. But once again, that Scumfrog launch frog, it allows you it's heavy enough that you can use a heavy action rod and still be accurate and still get the distance out of it. So that's the setup that I use. I'm bouncing back and forth between 65-pound braid and 80-pound braid. And not that I think I'm catching a fish that's so big it's going to break 65, I need 80. When you're skipping it under overhangs, skipping it under boat docks, stuff like that, 80 is a little more forgiving, and you don't get as many backlashes and stuff with 80. So I go back and forth between 65 and 80. Always use a high-speed reel. I like Ardent. There's a lot of good reels out there. Here's one of the other cool things about this Scumfrog. And you know, I mostly fish now, since I'm not fishing the big national tours anymore. I mostly fish in Florida. But I got to tell you guys about this color. This color is called Sloppy Toad. I've felt like a sloppy toad. Well, actually many times in my life. But anyway, this color is called Sloppy Toad. But the beauty of this in Florida fishing, to me, is that. See that belly? Most all frogs are either black or white on the belly. We haven't been overrun, but we have a massive population of tilapia in Florida nowadays. And that color right there is the color they are when they're small. Oh, I don't know, maybe about that size. And our bass down here have really started gorging on them certain times of the year, but they're used to eating them. So this is just about the only color. And like I said, I don't care about that side of the frog. I don't. That's to look pretty on the shelf so people buy it. That side. And it looks like a little tilapia. And I'll tell you what, I've been on some really good frog bites lately. Yeah, I've thrown a black one, thrown the black with the yellow on it, thrown white ones, thrown different colored ones. Catch them on every color of Scumfrog, launch frog I got. I've caught them on every single color. But when I pick Sloppy Toad up that has that belly like that, it's down there, okay? It's not just stuck on the side. You're reaching down in there with pliers, or with the big ones, you just stick your hand down in there because their mouths are big enough. But that color has just been amazing. And if you can't get a launch frog, just look at some of the, I use Scumfrogs now, so I don't really look at a bunch of the other companies, but I'm sure some of them have bottoms that are painted differently. You know what I mean? And maybe they don't. I don't know. I'm a Scumfrog guy. But maybe they don't, but if they do, look at the bottom, because I'm telling you, it has made so much of a difference. And when they hit it more aggressively, you land more of them. I mean, you land more with this thing with this big gaff hook in it anyway. Look at that. I mean, it's got a giant gaff of a hook in it. So you land them better anyway, but the deeper they get it, the better you hook them. So that's been some of the things that I've learned about tackle and you know, new baits that are out there, new frog stuff. That is my setup, and I can't imagine anything. Literally, the bait has made me a better fisherman. Like we've been on times before where vibrating jig, when it came out, it was awesome. You know, the stick worm or Senko or whatever, when it came out, it was freaking awesome. You know, the Alabama rig, it was awesome. Dude, this frog is the next thing that's going to be the big deal. Is it going to be a big deal for 1 year, 2 years, forever? Who knows? Somebody might make something better, but in my opinion right now, if you're a frog guy, that's the one you need.
I don't know whether I can get over the fact that you said shaft, or whether we're taping this when we're taping. We're taping.
There's no tape in that.
There's no tape in here. But this leads to kind of the second portion, and this is where I go 25 questions. You actually answered a lot of my questions. But the first thing I want to ask you, and then it kind of is going to lead into the second. You know, back in the day when I used to fish, all the old school guys used to say, like, when you cast your frog out there, you got to let it sit till the ripples go away. And it's something you hear about topwater baits and that. Yeah. So, really, you fish like that frog around pads a lot more. Mm-hmm. When I'm going to fish it on Gunnersville, it's going to be like around like scum and like that cheesy stuff. Yeah. Does it matter in either situation? What's your thoughts on that?
No, I really don't. If I land it right beside cover, where if it's a clump of pads or a stick or something like that, I will let it sit and let it, you know, let the ripples die out. Because a lot of times that fish will just come up and just eat it while it's just sitting there. But if I throw it past something and work it up to it, no. And if I'm fishing it over slop, No, when it hits, I just start, working it real slow.
That kind of leads to the second question when we're talking about working it. What's a cadence? Like, my general cadence is almost kind of like jerkbait fishing. You know, it's like 1, 2, 3, maybe a little quicker when I'm getting started. You know, 1, 2, 3, walk it, and then give it like a 2 count or something like that. How fast do you work it? Like, what's your cadence or your retrieve that you generally start off with and go to?
So, like, if it all depends on where the frog is in the cast. Like, if I, like lily pads, for instance, if I throw it out there and there's 3 clumps of lily pads in my cast as I come back, I'm going to work it fast till I get to the first clump of lily pads. And I'm going to work it real slow and let it sit back and forth a couple times, let it sit. And then I'll work it pretty fast to the next clump. Same thing as if you're throwing it over slop. You know, so many times, a lot of fish just randomly come up through the slop. But anytime there's little holes, whether it's a hole the size of a 5-gallon bucket or whether it's just a little hole this big, so many bites come around those holes because it's something different in the mat. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just keep a constant, because when it's on the mat, most of the time it's hard to make it walk the dog. You're just kind of jumping it along like that. I'll usually do it pretty fast until I get to a hole, whether I'm going to miss it by 6 inches to the right, whether I'm going to come right across it, whichever. But I'll start working it really slow and really, when I'm on a mat, I like to work it real deliberately, like not just slide it, like twitch the rod tip down to almost make the nose of the frog go down a little bit. It's because you figure whether that mat's that thick or this thick, you want that bass, he knows it's up there. You want him to be able to zone in on that thing, like he's, the frog's up here and you can picture him down there like he's juking and jiving underneath of it, like that. But if every time I'm doing it, the nose of that frog is going down, that's a constant something that he can zone in on, and they got a better chance of getting the frog.
All right, this might be the last question unless I think of another one. But if you guys got any questions for JT too, jump on his social media, dude. Like on his Facebook, go to his YouTube channel. There's a bunch of content that he posts on there. But he's always he answers my questions. He answers his messages. He'll answer your questions about frog fishing and that. Most of the time. He's a good dude, man. He's good people. He's honest and direct. But, go ask him because I probably missed a few of these questions. But one thing, and actually this is something that's coming up at Gunnersville a lot for me now too. So down in Florida, a floating frog is pretty awesome. But we also play around with popping frogs. It's been one of those things on Okeechobee. There's 2 years where a popping frog was on fire, and it goes back and forth. They're really the same bait, but they have slightly different actions. Do you have a decider, or do you just play with the two, or when do you switch between the two?
I personally have found no way to really decide when it is. One thing that I sound like a commercial for this launch frog. Before the launch frog came out, you could keep a popping frog in one spot easier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Keep a popping frog in one spot for a longer period of time because of the concave mouth on it. When you would move it, and if you could get it to walk a little bit, it would hardly move forward in your cast at all. But that launch frog now, it works so easy. Not only does it do that extra bounce I'm talking about, it works so easy that I can keep that in the same spot. So that's kind of negated me using a popping frog for that. There are some times, and I've been in some situations where they just liked the ploop, 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 ploop more of the popping frog. I remember a tournament on the Potomac River a couple of years ago where, dude, they were just annihilating a popping frog, and they wouldn't touch a regular frog. And it had to just been that sound. But as far as something I look for and go, oh, they'll bite a popping frog. The only time I do it now is when everything feels like it should be a frog bite, but they're not biting it. I'll tie a popping frog on and try it. But there's no factor that I look at that says, oh, we got to throw a popping frog.
And of course, I thought of one more question before we wrap this thing up. And actually, it's probably one of the most integral questions because, we're kind of like summer going into fall, in frog season, the water's really warm. But if you guys are watching this video at a different time of year, one of the things that's probably the most important is when like water, now I'm not going to hold you to this like area and stuff. Florida's kind of the exception, but you have so much experience like all of the United States from fishing. In general, pretty much outside of Florida, when's the water temperature when you say, hey, I might get bit on a frog? And when's the water temperature drop and fall when you're like, yeah, that's not going to happen anymore?
I mean, I've seen some crazy stuff happen in the spring where like Main Lake, you know, I'm not referencing Florida, I'm referencing most of the country, where like Main Lake will be 55, 56, but in the afternoons, in the very backs of the creeks on a warm sunny day, I mean, it might be 60, 62, you know, and I've caught them on frogs in that. I think so much, I really think it happens in Florida, but I think a lot of the rest of the country too. Fish change stuff on trends. And what I mean by that is if the water's been 45 for 3 weeks and it warms up to 54, they're gonna bite stuff that they normally wouldn't bite in 54-degree water. And this isn't exactly talking about frogs, this is just in general talking about just trends. You know, like I remember a tournament, for instance, on Lake Okeechobee where Chris and Bobby Lane both smashed them on Big Easies. And they were catching them on Big Easies in like 56-degree water, which you would never throw a Big Easy in 56-degree water. But the water had been in the high 40s or low 50s. I remember it was the coldest winter I've ever seen since I've been living in Florida. The water was high 40s, low 50s. And when it warmed up to 56, 57, 58 degrees, those fish went to chewing Big Easies, reeled them under the water on the surface. They just went crazy over them. Because it was the trend, because it had been this temperature and it warmed up 10 degrees. Even though if it had been normal and cooled down to 56 degrees, they never would have touched it. But since it warmed up, and they're cold-blooded people, you know, they're cold-blooded critters, not like people that are 98.6 all the time, or supposed to be. They're different, so they go on trends. So to answer that question, really, it just, if it's springtime and it warms up, throw a frog, man. If the water temperature's climbed, throw a frog. And then again in the fall, I've caught them when it's got down to 55, 56, 57, up north, not in Florida, but 55, 56, 57 degrees. I've caught them till then, for sure.
Overwhelmed, but that's a good thing, though. More information is better than less. You're not taking my dog home.
What? He likes me, though.
So Bog loves JT. JT's good people. Like I said, go check him out on the social media and that. He's a straight up dude. And if you guys like MLF, you'll like it more when you watch him doing the commentating. It's highly amusing, dude. I actually watch it more for him kind of making fun cracks about stuff than the fishing. But
witty banter.
Witty banter, exactly. Banter. But make sure to give him a follow. It's JT Kenney on Facebook, and your Instagram is JT Kenney Fishing, and
just
YouTube.
Put JT Kenney Fishing,
you'll find him. But bro, thank you. In the time of COVID. Fishing tips are always good. Go out, get yourself a frog. I'll put links actually to everything that we talked about down in the description box of Tackle Warehouse. But go out, get yourself a frog. It's a fun bite, dude.
It's
even
awesome.
If you don't catch,
awesome.
Even if you're not catching giants, dude, you're like, doo, 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 like it's fun, dude. It gets you all fired up, and it's usually fishing around fairly heavy cover, unless you're like skipping docks or fishing open water frogging. But it's fun. You're in the grass. You're throwing a heavy rod like braid. It's smash bang fishing, which is fun. But thank you guys for watching this video. We'll try to hit JT up again for another video. But tight lines, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you back out on the water talking tackle.